Hello and welcome to this section. In our last session, we worked on mouse events. So I showed you some different types of mouse events we have, and I'm sure you have a good understanding of what the mouse event can do. So in this section, we are going to be working on some inputs in form events. All right. So we're working on some inputs that we have in the form event. First of all, let's declare some variables that we're going to be needing for this section. So we have let, we're going to need a form, we assign document dot query selector. So what do we pass in there? We pass in there the form. Secondly, we have the tax input. We have document dot get element by ID. So what are we getting? We're getting tax. So if we go down to the index.html, so we're going to have this in here. So we have the form. So first of all, we got the form and the input. We have this inside this input element. So we have this ID for tax right here. So we are trying to get them. So put a semicolon at the end. So nextly, let's create an event. Put an event in the form. So we have add event listener. So we are listening for submit. Now the function we have there is run event. So let's put a semicolon there. Now let's create a function for run event. Okay, so put the event object in there. So I have console.log. So put a backtick. We have event type, just the way we have it in our last session. Put a colon. Then we have a dollar sign, and we have e.type. Alright, so that will give us the type of the event the moment we click on the form. The moment you click on this button here. Let's go check what we have there. So we click right here on this tax. Okay, so there's something going on. Okay, so the moment we click on this add tax button, it takes us to the index.php file, which basically it's not supposed to actually do that, but we are going to be using actually the default behavior will take us to that file. Okay, because if we come down here to the form, we have the action index.php. So the default behavior will take us to this index.php file, but we can actually do we can actually do it in such a way that if we click on this add tax, it prevents that default behavior from going to that particular page. So how do we do that? We have the e.prevent default. So we have the object of prevent default. Okay, put a semicolon at the end. So with this, it stops any default behavior which is going to that index.php file. Now if we click on this add tax, now we are going to see the event type that we have here. So we click down here and see we have the event type submit. So we see we have it in such a way that it's no more going to that index.php file. So this prevent default has prevented the default behavior from going to that file. So now we can actually see how we can get the value. Okay, so let's see how we can get the value. So we have console.log, then we have the tax input, because we are trying to get a value that's coming in from this input. So we're going to first of all get the tax input variable, then we have dot value. Okay, so this will help get the value which is coming into this input. So the default value we have here is walk a dog, so we're going to click on that. Okay, so you see that we have walk a dog right here. Okay, it's very easy, very easy to access. Now before we move on, we can still look for a way. Okay, what if we have we'll try to take away this value we have in here in the input. So if you come down here to this input on the HTML file, we have the value walk a dog, so we can remove it from here. Okay, we can just choose to delete, or we can come down here and create something that will help us take away that walk a dog value that we have placed in the input. So we have tax input dot value, then we have it assign, put an empty quote to that, put a semicolon, so you see that is gone. Okay, basically if we are now creating the main application, the main to do application, so it's very important that we have that done, because whenever we input a tax inside this, whenever we put it, we pass in a value inside this input, and we click on the add tax, we always want this to be empty again. Okay, so we can also put another value. So that's the reason why it's better off I show you how to actually do that. So I'm going to comment here, we have clear input. Okay, now also this, I'm going to have get the value. All right, so now let's move on. So this the submit event. Okay, so I'm going to comment on this. Yep, I'm going to comment on that, and let's move on to another event that we are going to be working on here. So we have key down, the key down event. So I have tax input dot add event listener. Okay, so we have that, then we have key down. Okay, so put a comma here, sorry, then we have the run event function right there. So I'm going to comment on this so we can get a feel of what we are doing here. Now what we are going to do here, this key down event, it's very simple. What we just have to do is to click down, all right, click the key and hold it down, so that triggers the key down event. Okay, so what you just do is to hold down the key and it triggers that event. So we can better still get the value of what is being passed into this input. So how do we do that? We have console.log .log, then we do that. We have e dot target, e dot target dot value. Okay, I hope you know what this target is actually doing for us. So target is the element the event happens on, okay, which in this case is the input. Okay, so that's what the target connotes. So let's put a semicolon at the end of this expression, Okay, so the value is what we log in the input. So the value is what we log in the input. So I'm going to put something here. So let's say we have walk a dog. You see that we have, okay, let's just put something. Okay, so you see, what do we have here? We have this login, we have it, the value being outputted on the console. All right, so that's very easy to achieve. Okay, so better still, we can even still look for, we can still do it in such a way that we log the value that we are imputing here on this heading we have here. So how do we do that? So I'm going to have declare another variable for heading. So I'll assign document dot query selector. Okay, I'm going to have that h3, put a semicolon at the end of that expression. So I'm going to have here heading dot inner text. Okay, so then I assign e dot target dot value, put a semicolon right there at the end of the expression. So what I have here, I'm going to click down on this. So the moment I click down this, so we see the value that I'm imputing right in here showing on this heading here. So that's very easy to achieve. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing we have right here. So I'm going to comment on that. Let's move on. So the next event that we are going to be working on is the key up. Okay, the key up event. So I'm going to copy what I have here. So let's copy what we have here, then let's paste it right here. Okay, so I'm going to comment on this previous event we just worked on. All right, so now then, how do we work with a key up event? So the key up event is the direct opposite of the key down. So how do we achieve this? So I'm going to click down. Oh, sorry. I still have my key down there. So let's change this from key down to key up. Okay, now let's try this again. So I'm gonna click down and release. So that actually gets the result of that. So we actually click down on the input and release that value that we have there, and it triggers the key up event. Now let's work on key press. Let's work on the next event, which is key press. Now we have, I'm going to paste this event right here. So I'm going to change this to key press. Okay, so key press is very simple. Anything that we have pass in there, the moment you are clicking on that input, anything you pass in there triggers the key press event. Okay, it's very easy to access. Now let's move on to the next event that we have. All right, so we have key. All right, let's move on to focus. Let's work on focus. All right, so we're going to have this paste here. So we change the event here from key down to focus. All right, now this focus is very simple. What we just do here is to, click right here in the input. The moment we click there, so that triggers the focus event. Now the opposite of the focus is blur. So I'm just going to copy what I have here and paste it down it here. So change this to blur. Okay, so we have blur. Comment on this. Okay, now if we click on inside here, triggers focus. Okay, but the moment you click out of that input, it triggers the event blur. But if we click in here, so I'm just going to uncomment on this. So if we click in here, it triggers focus. If we click out, it triggers blur. All right, so that's it about that event. Okay, very easy. Now let's move on to the next one we have here. So we have cuts. You can use cuts also. So we have cuts. Okay, so any inputs that we have in here. So if I use the cuts, if I cut it off, it triggers the event cut. Okay, so we can use the Control X, or we can use what we have on the desktop, the right click and go search for the cut option. Okay, now let's comment on that. We can also use paste. Okay, we can use the paste. Oh, what's that? I'm gonna copy what I have here and paste it down below, and let's change this to paste. All right, the right opposite of cut. Okay, so come down here and change the event to paste. Okay, so if we have if we cut off something, okay, so let me just put this here, cut it off, and paste it with Control V, so we see that it triggers the event type paste. Okay, so we can still use this and use the paste option here, so we see it triggers the event paste. Now another one we're going to work on now is the input. Okay, the input event. The input event is a very special event. So let's change the paste to input. So this is a very special event. So what really is this input event achieving? So anything that we put inside this input, any value that we pass in there triggers input. Even though we cut this, anything that you actually do triggers the input. I cut it off and you see that it still triggers it. If I paste, it triggers. So anything you just that actually happens inside the input, the event input is going to be triggered. So that's it about the input. Now before we end this session, I'm going to be showing you of one last event that we're going to be working on, which is the change event. Now let's go down to our index file and let's create a select option. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to have select. Okay, so let's have that here. We have option. Let's give it 3. Okay, so I'm going to have 1 here. I'm going to have 2. I'm going to have 3. Then I'm going to have 1. I'm going to have 2. I'm going to have 3. All right, so we see the options that we have right here. Okay, so I'm going to use the change events to see how the change events can how the events can actually can be triggered on this select option. Now let's copy this and let's paste it down below. I'm going to comment on this once again, and before we move on, let's declare a variable here. So we have select. I have here document dot query selector. All right, so we have document dot query selector, and we are going to pass in select, which is the HTML elements. So now we come down it here, and we move the tax input variable and we put select, and then we change the event from input to change. All right, now I'm gonna do something here. So we click here, I'm gonna click on 2. You see we have the event type change. Okay, so I'm gonna click on 3. So the moment we change this, you see that the event type is actually triggering. So the event triggers the moment we change the inputs that we have there. So we can still get the value of what we have there. So we have console.log, I have e.target.value. Okay, so that will give us, bring out the value that we have there. So you see event type change and the value is 2. So I'm going to change this to 3. So we see that event type change and the value is 3. So that's very easy. I'm sure you have a good understanding of all what we did in this form, this events, the form events. Okay, so in our next section we are going to be working on other important features that we're going to be using in the course of this course. All right, bye and see you in our next session.